right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to 1851 Franchise. Today, I am joined by Len MacPhee. Len, how are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Great. Great. To start us off here, so we can learn a little bit about you, can you tell us about your background and maybe how you ended up specializing in franchise law?
Sure. Well, thanks for inviting me. Yes, I am currently co-chair of the Polsinelli franchise distribution supply chain practice. I've been practicing in franchise law since probably 2000, so nearly 20 years, or a little over 20 years. I started really less by design and more by opportunity, but had as an associate working in commercial litigation, was given several cases that involved disputes between a franchisor and franchisee, and I really enjoyed that work. I enjoyed it a lot, in part because it combined different areas of law with which I had interest. So the business law, contract law, particularly, but also business torts and regulatory environment, as well as intellectual property. And so it was the combination of those things that I found both challenging, but also an opportunity to work in areas of law that I found of interest. So that's how I kind of got into it and why I was attracted to it.
Yeah, awesome. Um, Perfect. So to dive in here, kind of, jumping to today, what do you think is the biggest legal hurdle facing the franchising industry in 2021/2022?
It really coincides directly with the biggest hurdle, as far as businesses go. In my estimation, it's probably two, but the first one would be coming out of COVID and identifying the changes that are permanent and the opportunities that are presented by the change in customer demand and so forth. And then the legal aspect of that, so would be, how do you implement it and do so in a way that is consistent with your requirements, both with respect to registration and disclosure, and what your offering looks like, and also probably more directly what your contractual provisions and long-term franchise agreements provide. So as an example, how does a quick service restaurant adapt to everything from the increased drive-through demand to delivery and pickup, and what does the franchise agreement provide with respect to being able to implement those changes and implement them in a way that involves cost to the operator typically, and making sure that those things are navigated. So I think it's, as much of anything, it's business and relationship, but there are legal aspects of that which are important. The second legal issue facing the franchise industry relates to the employment-related issues, both misclassification, AB5 in California specifically, and other states, as well as joint employer concerns, which I can elaborate on. But I think that's the other major legal hurdle facing franchise today.
Right. Yeah, definitely. Um, in general, what is the most common mistake you see franchise brands making from a legal perspective?
I think, thinking about that, I would say knowing when to negotiate or compromise, especially in relationships with franchisees, or between franchisor and franchisees on both sides, as well as suppliers, and to some extent at the operation level, uh, landlords and other third parties with whom one has a contract, and deciding when you need to stand firm and often be involved in litigation versus negotiating a resolution. And I think sometimes non-business and legal assessment variables get inserted into that equation. And I would say the biggest mistake I see is those who decide to um, give on things that they probably shouldn't, for the health of the entire brand, especially from a franchisor perspective. And conversely, give on things that, or don't negotiate on things that really make the most sense to do so, both big picture and with respect to that specific relationship.
Mm, yeah, well said. Um, on the franchisee side, what is one thing you think every prospective franchisee should know before joining a specific brand?
So, I mean, the obvious biggest answer is get a good understanding of the financial picture from existing franchisees, and at least that's to the extent you don't have an emerging brand, and that would mean everything from what works to our franchisees in a model through which they can make a profit, an appropriate profit relative to their investment and their desired return on investment. So that's the most important thing anybody going into a business should try to ascertain as best they can. Probably the less obvious answer, but one I think is important, important variable in that bigger picture, perhaps, but one that gets often overlooked is, what is the supply chain like for the franchise brand? To what degree does the franchisor achieve revenue, receive revenue via supply of products to and services to franchise owners? Um, and is that a healthy environment and relationship? Is the purchasing power of the brand being properly exploited, but also disclosed, and everyone knows exactly what the relationship is with respect to use of those proceeds. So it's a subset of the former, but I think it's a very important piece of a lot of brands that the franchisee ought to look into and know before they go forward.
Yeah, very nice. Um, Great. To wrap up here, the last thing we have here, as a lawyer, what would you say you love most about working with franchises?
I guess I go back to what I said originally with the part of what drew me into this area of practice, all along, remains true today, which is that you get to help entrepreneurs with respect to multiple areas of the law. So I like contracts and business relationships and negotiating and working through and handling disputes regarding that relationship. But infused into that is intellectual property and intellectual property protection, as well as a substantial regulatory environment in which franchise operates. And so you get exposure to and the ability to work within a lot of different aspects of the law. And so that is, as a lawyer, that's what I appreciate about practicing in this area.
Well said. Perfect. Well, that was everything. Thank you so much for chatting with us today. I hope you have a great rest of your day.
Well, thank you. You too.